Okay, people. So I am here with Mark Rosenblatt, the writer and director of Ganef. Ganef?
It's Ganef. It's a Yiddish word. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Mark, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
So yeah, you've created this short film, which I hear is up maybe for Oscar nomination, which is pretty big, man. You know what I mean? It's pretty
I
big,
mean,
right?
yeah, I mean, to be accurate, we have qualified for consideration by the Academy. So we're into like the last 100, I think roughly about 150 films that have kind of come through basically the festival circuit and kind of earned the right to be considered for an Oscar. The process is then like they take the 150 down to 15 for the shortlist, and then the 15 goes to the 5 nominations, and we're waiting to find out in about 3 weeks time whether whether we'll get into that shortlist, but of 15. But I mean, from the point that we started at making this film, it's just still absolutely amazing to just even be in the mix and be in and amongst all these brilliant films. So I'm absolutely delighted to just even have got this far.
Yeah, I mean, because 150 sounds like a lot, but when you consider the amount of films that usually get, submitted to a film festival, 150 is nothing.
No.
So just getting into that pool is crazy.
Yeah, it's mad. You're right. Like there are thousands of films, short films entered in and screened by festivals. I mean, there are thousands of festivals to start with.
Mm.
So yeah, it is pretty surreal. Um, and fun. Like it's like I never really knew this is my first original short film. Like as in it's the first. I've made a couple of shorts before that were adapted from other people's
Mm.
material. It's the first thing I've like imagined, written, made, directed. And yeah, it's like it's the first time I've even thought about what the Oscar process is. I just didn't even really, I used to watch it and I knew some kind of voting took place, but I didn't really know. And it's actually very rigorous and like a precise sort of like process of voting that goes on. I just didn't really know about
Yeah.
and lots of rules and stuff. So as you can imagine.
I mean, before we get into anything, because this is interesting, like, what do like awards mean to you? Right, because we had, like the Oscars, the Palme des Jeux, just all of these big events that go on. But you know what I mean? I think every time you watch something like this, there is always that, man, it's a shame that film didn't get, or that director,
Yeah.
or there's always like it's never. I don't think anyone can ever say there's a universal. No, that was all correct, right? So,
Yeah.
what does it mean to someone that's created stuff to be up for these sort of things, or the potential to be up for these sort of things?
Well, I guess you make things to be seen, and these kinds of recognitions. I mean, not that we've had that yet, but even just this exposure
Mm.
for us means more people will watch the film. So that's huge. Like, you're in, as we just said, there's like a lot of films around, and you're looking for a way to get those films out there and be seen. And like for instance, the film is you can watch our film on a brilliant short film, a curated short film platform called Omeleto, omeleto.com, and we just went live on that about 4 or 5 days ago, and we're in a section of that called Oscar qualified films, which if you're looking to watch a short film on that platform, you might go to that category first because it's a little bit like time, it's topical and it's suggests
Mm.
it's so that makes a huge difference to us. It just probably means more people are going to watch the film on there, and and take note. And we, so like, yeah, getting a work out there is huge. Like on an ego level, of course. I mean, there are probably a handful of people in the world who could honestly say that winning an award doesn't mean anything to them. It's nice for the, you spend a lot of time doubting yourself and sort of working up the confidence and courage to do stuff in the first place. And I guess awards are the opposite end of the spectrum. They're the bit where someone feels like someone's gone, there was something exceptional about your work, and we want to honor that. And like, even if I think everyone knows that doesn't really truly mean their thing is the best thing in the world at that moment ever, because there's no accounting for taste, and there are so many things that don't even are brilliant, that don't even land in the kind of taste world of the academy, or aren't eligible for various reasons. There's so much stuff that you'll see that you'll be like, that blew my head off, but then that film won that award, and where's the justice? But I still think, yeah, egotistically, it's probably like quite a buzz to win things.
Yeah.
And gives you confidence to go on and make things. I think the other thing is like recognition of this kind. It's not just about the film you've got out there at the moment, but it's also your own ability to make your next film can be helped by recognition, by awards recognition, because it helps with funding and it helps people take it seriously, the next time around.
Yeah. I guess from that point of view, definitely. And especially, straight out the gate, right? Where there must be the nerves of, will people vibe with this, to then get this sort of look? It's just like, oh, okay, I'm not failing, right? What I'm doing is working.
Yeah.
And now the process of making the next one could be a little bit easier.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, exactly. So it's like, gives you confidence, it gives other people more confidence in you, I guess.
Yeah. So your background is in theatre, right? You've done a lot in that platform. So what was was it like transitioning over to this, to the screen, as it were? Right? Was it difficult? Was writing similar, or did you have to really kind of pivot on your process?
Good question. Lots of things in there. I mean, it's sort of been a bit of I've been doing this theatre directing for about 20 years, but I've always sort of had in mind I'd like to direct film. I've always loved films, and since I was a kid, and wanted to make them as well. So in the last 10 years, I've kind of done a few pieces of filmmaking that, starting as a writer, often adapting plays into films. That's sort of helped me in a way. I've learned, so I learned a lot doing that. I learned how to just write a script. I learned how to shape up a scene. I learned how to use Final Draft. I learned how to work to sort of develop my own visual language. And the visual side of it is a big thing for me, because theatre, a lot of theatre is very verbal. And story relies on characters saying stuff to each other about where they've been that day and what's going on and their backstory and their back history. And in film, it's actually quite a relief to have different kinds of storytelling solutions. I really like. I mean, my film is quite. It's quite stripped back, like dialogue wise. Really loved sort of removing, just telling story visually. So like, it's different, but a buzz for me to just be able to sit in point, to be able to go into someone's point of view, which also in theatre is harder to do, because you're essentially in theatre watching a single locked off wide shot for 90 minutes. I mean, not all theatre all the time, because some theatre is more virtuosic in the way it's staged, and you feel in the audience like you are watching different camera angles. But often, a straight sort of play where people are talking about stuff, you're generally watching a room from a distance. and you're never quite seeing, you know, punching right into someone's POV, and theatre obviously, film obviously gives you that. So my film, again, I've really enjoyed writing a film that's essentially seen from the point of view of a child who's misunderstanding some events that are going on around her. So, you know, those things are fantastic to be able to do. I think also working in theatre is very actor centered, and you're spending often 4 or 5 weeks in rehearsal, sometimes a bit less, bit more, but you're working with actors on supporting actors, trying to get the very most focused and the best performance out of them. And so I've learned over the years, I've got a sort of tool bag of techniques to that I use with actors, and I feel confident about working with actors. And a lot of, I think a lot of film directors who come from different medium, like commercials, which is much more visual, and stylists are much more visual stylists. It's sometimes said that they're not as confident. They don't on set know how to work with actors. Actors are sort of like someone you have to sort of compositionally frame.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that I can, you know, do that on screen, and you know, do that when we were filming. It felt good. So yeah, it wasn't hard. It's just different, but it's still storytelling, and I've learned, you know, a lot about storytelling in theatre, and I sort of hopefully bring that to the set.
What's it like having these new tools though? Like, because you say, watching a theatre play, it's all about the lighting of it. But with you know, films, you can change like the filter. I say filter, it might not be that. I don't know the technical terms.
Yeah.
But you know, the grading of a film, the look, the color.
Yeah.
So you can create that
Totally.
feel like it's the 60s, the 50s. You know what I mean? Or you can do things like that which you can't do in a theatre.
Well, I mean, you can do that in the theatre as well. I think theatre does evoke the color and feel of period very well. But I know exactly what you mean. I think what you're getting at as well is it's like, and this is something that a lot of theatre directors say, a lot of famous theatre directors who then go across to film, people like Sam Mendes often talk about, is like the control that you feel on set. So there's a lot of things that you, and when you're filming, not on set so much, but in the edit, the control of the camera, what you frame, what you choose to see, how you put those choices together, and then how you can just, you know, reorder things and reshape things in the edit endlessly to sort of discover what the rhythm and the look and the feel of the film is. That's something that in theatre is very much harder to do, because you're working with people who need a coffee break, and people who are, for, you know, all sorts of reasons. You know, you can't just keep shuffling things around. So that was lovely. I mean, in terms of the tools, like I am relatively a novice, and this was the Ganef, the film I made, it was the biggest camera crew I'd worked with as a director. I'd made 2 shorts before that were adapted shorts, and they were with a very, very skeletal crew of like a, you know, a sound boom guy. Excuse me, I've got a cough. A director of photography who was the cinematographer who was operating the camera, and a producer essentially. This time I was working with, you know, a camera crew of about 7 people, lots of other heads of department, production designers and technicians and things. And it was just a different for me, and really exciting. One of the most exciting parts of it was the prep. Again, talking about control, like storyboarding, working out everything, working out frame by frame what your film's going to look like, with the cinematographer who's like challenging everything in a really helpful way, going like, but yeah, why do we need these 3 shots when we can have this shot? And I'm like, well, I want these 3 shots. And he's like, you can do all of this in one shot. And suddenly you force yourself to kind of be more economic, and deliberate, and suddenly you're like, oh yeah, there's like everything can be contained in that shot. All the things I thought I needed to say can be done really elegantly in that moment. And like working that out stitch by stitch with someone before you even, you know, I did like at least a week of solid storyboarding with my DP, who's kind enough to give it to us. You know, everyone works so little on these films, and she was so brilliant. And it just meant that when we were on set, we knew exactly what we were doing, and it really, I think, really comes through in the final, in what we got, because that was all a lot of it was very, very, very heavily planned. So yeah, those tools, and then as you say, I mean, I could go on. We shot the film on something, on a camera that's on an anamorphic lens, which was the DP's choice, because we wanted the house to feel like a fourth character in the film, something that was almost big and wide, and sort of the girl felt quite small inside of, and that animal, and the director, the cinematographer wanted to use, like, in terms of tools, you know, this beautiful anamorphic lens which stretches everything and makes everything feel wider. And you then also used another lens I can't remember the name of, and you know, stuff like that is just heaven, because you, as you say, you're really controlling the image and the experience that the viewer's having.
Yeah, that's a funny thing, because watching it, you get the sense of things like you know, Lion Witch in a wardrobe, and you know, where the kids are in these huge houses, and you know, like exploring and playing and just all of that kind of thing. So yeah, it did really kind of feel like that.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
But now, oh man, there's so many things I want to ask you about the process. But I think one of the big things is, right, so coming from this theatre background, building on stuff, you know, Shakespeare and things like that.
Yeah.
Where does a story like Ganef come from?
Well, it's very personal story. My and you know, my grandmother and her family, my mum's family, that is, they survived the Holocaust. So I'm Jewish, and my grandmother was born in Frankfurt, and was a child in the Second World War during the Holocaust. And so she spent the war. She didn't get out. But she didn't, and thankfully she didn't go to a concentration camp. But she spent the war in hiding. So she was on the run for about 4 years from running from, you know, as a girl, being smuggled around from Frankfurt. She went to Antwerp. From Antwerp, she ended up living in the south of France. Spent a lot of time in a cellar underground. Watched her, you know, her sister went to get food one day, never came back, got arrested by the Gestapo. She survived the war, but she very nearly was transported to Auschwitz, just about escaped that fate by some luck. And then she went across the mountains. She then hid in a mountain village, and then she went over the mountains into Italy and saw out the war, pretending to be a Catholic girl in a convent in Rome, where 2 of the nuns knew that she was Jewish, but none of the others did. And she was living with children of, like, Italian SS officers. So she emerged from the war very, you know, shaped by that experience. And I grew up in the, I guess, 80s and 90s in London, surrounded by not just her and her immediate family, who thankfully did survive, but also knowing that many of her relatives were murdered. I mean, we lost, you know, tens of family in the Holocaust, just you know, in camps, or murdered in roundups in towns that they lived in. And so I was just sort of, the story is very deep in me because of those things, because I grew up with a sense that the world could turn on you, that it's not a stable place, however stable you might feel. And also that my grandmother was really affected by those things. I mean, she lived a very happy and comfortable life in many ways, but I know that her behavior was often quite shaped by things like not trusting the world, you know. So she crossed the road, even in London. She would often avoid police officers, anyone in uniform. She didn't really like to take a taxi on her own. She didn't trust people driving her anywhere. For her, family was the only thing she could trust. And I wanted to make a film which represented not the war itself, but the sort of aftermath of the war, you know, like the process of what happens after you've survived. So, you know, when you're you're almost surviving survival, like when because the trauma doesn't go away, the horrors of that don't go away, and as I could see around me, it gets passed on to your children, and there's this thing called inherited trauma that
Yeah.
many communities have. It's not just my film is specifically about the Holocaust, but my intention is not just to talk about the Holocaust. This happens to anyone who is subjected to systemic violence. The behavior of the generations that come after is massively shaped by these events, and we'd be foolish to think it wasn't. So I sort of wanted to go like, what would it be like if we just stepped inside one house and I found this moment that a family member told me about, of not of what happens in the film, but just of someone who used to hide the shopping from the cleaner out of fear that they didn't want to show them anything that they might be tempted by. Not that they ever thought that the cleaner was exactly going to steal, but just generally they were so scared of the world.
Yeah, it becomes ingrained. Certain actions become ingrained, even though the reality is nothing's probably going to happen, but there's still that defense mechanism that's kind of built into you now. You're hardwired in this way of thinking. And so you have to do this, because if you don't, what if this is a time that it all turns?
Right. And you confuse the general with the specific. Like Nina in the film is a really lovely woman. She's not a thief. And the mother loves her, actually, thinks she's a really lovely person. But at the same time, she has this general fear of the world, and the two things get confused, Suddenly this woman who she really likes becomes sort of the object of great suspicion. And that is how it works. It's like I was talking to a psychologist about it, and she said, like, often people who survive, they have this, like, they're walking on a glass floor, and underneath the glass floor is all the horror, and on top of the glass floor is the sort of new life that they're trying to lead, the normal life. And sometimes that horror just kind of comes up through and mixes and gets confused, and you're trying to separate them. It's really hard.
It's weird, right? Because you're always told, just, work hard and everything will fall into place. And you're like, yeah, I get it. But what if, right? Yeah. And even though things might be going, you're always waiting for everything just to fall apart. Right. Exactly. You're like, right, I need to build things on a solid foundation. But it's like, what if it turns to sand? Right? When's this going to implode on me? Exactly. And that's always in the back of your mind.
When am I going to have to? When am I going to have to run again? When am I going to? When are they going to break down the door again?
So I really, and it's funny, right? I'm not saying this because you're in front of me, but the film was terrible. No, I really feel that all of this comes across so well.
Oh, good.
Like these moments, it's just when the accusation is made and the conversation is there, and you're just like, oh, you feel so, because you see the girl realize the mistake. And then everything goes down, but then the following conversations, you feel these conversations, you feel the moments, the transitions, the things that have passed, the things that have come back together, and the rawness of it all, right? And especially in the Maid afterwards, her interactions with the girl, and it all makes sense, and you're just like, oh shit! But it's so visceral, so raw. You just get all these emotions just jumping at you. It really works.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's really lovely to hear. Like your reaction to it. It's really nice. Like it is. It's like it's just a bit painful, isn't it? That somehow something is lost, like their friendship, and they can't quite claw it back after that. Some line has been crossed that they can't go back. And
because I think it's that thing, like, and you get it I think sometimes you get these things if you've been in similar situations and stuff like that, and it's just like, I don't know, because once an accusation is made, even though, you know, someone might profusely apologize and be like, I get it, I understand, I can see it from your point of view, but then you're like, when's this gonna happen again?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
will the next time, will I be believed, or like what's gonna happen? Like, what's gonna
Yeah.
happen next
That's
time?
really that's very astute thing to say, because it's like there's some, on some level, I think that the cleaner also sort of knows, doesn't she, that she afterwards, that once she's been accused, even when the apology's been made, that she's not safe anymore.
Mm.
It's like this could blow up again, and it's because because what's sort of in the atmosphere between them is something much bigger than all of them that they don't understand, which is basically, you know, the threat, the it's basically trauma
Yeah.
is in the house, and it does weird things to people.
Yeah.
And you know, people are going with their best intentions, but they're sort of being controlled a lot by, you know, fear.
Yeah. Which is kind of ironic as well, because at the end of the film, both women are kind of in the same place now.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because it's the mum with the trauma from the war, and now the maid with this trauma of the accusation and the fear of when will that happen again. Like the mum's the fear of when will, you know, the I'd be maybe swept up and taken away and my life fall apart again. And the maid is kind of a similar thing. Obviously, it's different levels of, but to them, it's still very relevant and raw.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's good. It's really, it's like I think I really like films that I don't know if I mean, I hope that from this conversation it feels like our film sort of does that for you, but I really love films that are morally complicated and you know, are ambiguous, and you don't quite know who to root for, and you sort of understand why everyone's doing what they're doing, even if it causes problems. And you I'm not interested in going, you know, one person's, I mean, you know, I'm interested in the complexity of it, and it's nice to hear that that seems to be coming out for you. Yeah.
Yeah, there's even like the little girl, right? You can't even really be like, oh, what an asshole, because she's heard these stories, right?
Yeah.
She's heard these stories and then see something, and she's
Yeah.
just like,
And
oh
also,
shit, mum's
she's
right.
yeah, and she's really young, and she's
Yeah.
5, 6 years old. It was really important when we cast it. Just as a slight sidebar, but it's relevant to what you're saying, is that we did quite a big cast. First of all, we were incredibly lucky to get this wonderful girl to play the part. She's 5 when we auditioned her, 6 when we shot the film, and we auditioned a lot of girls, and we auditioned girls from that. I mean, Isabella, who played it, was the youngest girl we met. Some of the girls were, you know, closer to 9 years old, and 9 meant, this is whatever, but you can't shoot when they're 6 or under. You can't shoot for longer than 3 hours in front of camera
Yes.
every day. When they're a bit older, you get a bit more time. So part of me was a bit nervous that I was like, maybe we'll find a girl who's older but looks younger, and I can make. And in the end, like, Isabella came through. She was amazing, and we just went to the best person. But what I also realized was that the girl needs to really feel like she's 5 or 6, because once you get a bit older, your logical brain starts to work
Yes.
more effectively. And there's a chance, if you're 8, 9 years old, or you seem a bit older, that you'd pause before you accuse the cleaner. You know, you might ask your mum a question or two to work something out before you pointed a finger or before you did something. So really important, actually, her age, that she's not only fed horrifying stories, but that she's at a point in her life where she's more emotional than she's logical, and she does crazy. She then reacts in a
Well,
very
yes,
helpful
that
way.
what she does is just like, but again, you think, yeah, obviously a little kid would do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It all makes, that's the thing, it all makes sense.
Oh, good. Yeah.
There's nothing that you think, who would do that? That's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Everything would be like, oh, yeah, I get it. You know what I mean? You just like, you feel uncomfortable, you feel sad. You know, and especially, God damn it, Mark, what the fuck was the ending, man?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
what the fuck you do there? Because now you're just like, fuck, what's gonna happen? Like, what's gonna happen here?
Oh, yeah. So what you mean, like when she's at the very end, when she's
Yeah.
What do you mean? What will happen next, or
Well, yeah,
or
like
just
the
let it bleed?
ramifications of this next thing. You know what I mean? Because yeah, like because you just think it's something obviously that people do, and it's harmless. It's a
Oh, I
harmless
see.
thing.
Yeah, what the cleaner does.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's a harmless thing, but
Right.
because of the other thing, you know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
trauma of the mother, what's gonna happen now? And you're just like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that story, the cleaner is quite a delicate one, because some people have watched the film and don't see what you see. That some people watch the film and think that either think that her intention is more malicious than it is, or more, more she's really trying to steal, or I mean, I'm really pleased that you see that, because I think that what I'm trying to do is just suggest like what happens to someone when that, this is a woman she's from Yorkshire. I mean, this is not said in the film out loud, but like, in my head, she's, for some reason she's in the big smoke, working, earning. She feels like a sense of belonging in this house. The family away from her family. She's got this really lovely bond with this girl, and she feels like she belongs in some way. She feels comfortable, connected.
Which we see at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like we clearly see that at the beginning, the playfulness and just all of that. Yeah.
And then she kind of like clearly has like, there's a couple of sort of nods to the fact that she, thinks that the stuff in the house is pretty amazing, like not that she wants to steal it, but she's just admires the material wealth of this house, stuff she dreams of having. But when she's sort of then accused and sort of marginalized, she loses that sense of belonging. And for me, like, that's the delicate thing, is the shift from respectfully admiring what's in a house to sort of taking a tiny liberty because you feel rejected yourself.
Yeah.
So she, that journey of like, for her, it's just sort of these tiny little shifts from like admiration to jealousy or envy is sort of what I'm after. And yeah, I'm really pleased that you see it in the way that I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like you're watching it, and I think it seems to be clear, but I can kind of get why someone might think the other way. But yeah, for me, it just all seemed a logical progression of what would happen. But now there's because you the equilibrium has shifted. The balance of the house is not the same. Right. So how will this play out? How will future things play out?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's that. And you're just like, it can never go back to what it was. What's going to happen?
Yeah, totally.
And you don't fucking tell us, Mark.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't put that in the film, so my guess is I've got an idea of what happens next, but it's as valid as anyone else's, to be honest. I am kind of exploring at the moment. I'm noodling around with a feature-length version of the short, so that obviously means I am thinking a bit more about what might happen after the end. But it's interesting. Yeah. Anyway.
Like when because it's one of those things, right? I think a lot of times when we story tell, ugh, when we tell stories. That was just a horrible sentence. Sometimes when we tell stories, you look for the beginning, the middle, the end, right? And a lot of times you hear when people watch a film, they'll be like, well, the beginning was great, the middle, it fell apart at the end, or, there was no clear ending, or the beginning, it didn't make any sense. We just don't, there's stuff we didn't feel we knew, and all of this.
Yeah.
So you've created this film where there's no clear beginning, there's no clear end, as in the context of stories as typically told.
Well,
But
I would say at the beginning, like, actually, I could argue that it's pretty
no.
conventional.
What I mean is, because I think it's clear coming in, right? You get the sense of the fan, like the relationship,
the
and
status quo.
yeah, that's all clear. But what I mean is, there's no. This is our family. The maid, she joined here, but there's no there's no firm history. We don't come in knowing all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And then you end it in this way, which is just like so many possibilities of where the story would go.
Yeah.
But when you're writing it, as you said, look, it's your first original film. So what was that kind of thinking like? You know what I mean? Because to be your first one, right? You're like, okay, do I need a concrete start? Do I need this? Do I need to flesh this out? Like, should I end on a definitive point, or can I end like this? Like, what was the whole thinking when you were constructing this, and how you could come at it, and what the reception might be, and what I mean, just these different forms of storytelling?
God, that's such a hard question to answer, because I don't. It's a really good question. I don't. I'm not. Some of it's just like the stuff you put down, and that's how you see it. I guess. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking, I need to show the relationship be joyful between them, so we've got somewhere to go, because I know it's going to go dark. I know that the end is going to be that image. I just knew that, because I wanted an image that showed the effect that the arc for the girl goes from trust, connection, joyfulness, playfulness with this other person, to being cut off, isolated, panicked, and literally in the dark. I knew that was the beginning and the end. And that, and I guess I instinctively knew that the idea, the hook of this confusion over whether she stole this silver bowl or not, was a really, I think it was just like a really good, simple domestic incident that could be through which could be refracted this much bigger thing of the Holocaust and trauma. So I was quite excited that I'd thought of that, and I think I just was able to then build a solid, as you say, like quite a logical sequence of events that they were both logical and a bit, in a way, a bit mad. That for the girl it's logical, but for us it's like, no, you've got this terribly wrong. So that was those were the threads that came between. I mean, I think the rest of it's taste, because how you then tell that story, like as you say, there is no kind of like spoon feeding of information. That is partly, I think, the pressure of a short film. You're trying to keep it as short as possible. You're trying to you're trying to write something of about 10 to 11, 12 pages that you can actually shoot in the time you're going to have. We shot this in 3.5 days. I got it down to about 11 pages of script, which was still a challenge to shoot. We were in a bit of a race against time. So it's partly that. It's partly just the elegance of, and the focus of short filmmaking means you have to be really, really stripped back and minimal. And so you don't have time to have big conversations about stuff. And then part of it is just taste. I really like films where I get to play detective. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, oversharing what I didn't need to share. Like, you can see their love for each other. You don't you can see she's the cleaner. You can see this girl's a little girl in a big house. You can create a sense of this girl lost in her own imagination and all that stuff without like needing to know what the cleaner had for breakfast or how long she's worked there. So yeah, and actually like there is, it's immediately inferred in the writing that they do that there's history between them because they've clearly played this game before.
Yes.
The game they play at the beginning is one that they know the rules to. Therefore, they've played it before. They are familiar with it. Therefore, there is history, and that's all you really need to say. It's you don't need to say how long for because what does that add? Yeah, so I guess that's it really.
Yeah, and I like the callback to the game later in the film.
Thank you.
Because that really helps to demonstrate the shift now.
Yeah.
Right? And you just, it does cut. Where like in that city, you're just like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, yeah, it's broken now. Everything's broken.
It is broken. That's right. And the cleaner is, does what adults do, which is she tries to just go, oh, this painful thing happened. I'm just going to pretend it never happened. And that's even worse because the girl now doesn't understand the thing that, what is this adult doing? Like this adult is now behaving like weird. What this happened. Why are we now pretending it doesn't? Which is again a big difference between adults and children, because children don't really do that. Children tend to just live with what's happened and sort of that stuff gets, stuff gets kind of played out on them. Whereas, adults edit. So
and look what could happen in the future.
Yeah.
But the kid isn't thinking that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that was that worked very well. Like, so you talked about casting the little girl, but what was the casting process, for this like? And compared to casting a theatre play, was there any differences in that respect?
Just not well, obviously just not really. I mean, not I mean, I cast the Sophie McSherra, who plays the housekeeper, I didn't know. I knew her work, and she obviously is in Downton Abbey and quite a big star in that. Although I never really watched Downton Abbey myself, but knew of her. And Lydia Wilson, who plays the mother, I did know a little bit. I met in the theatre, and I'm a huge fan. I just sent the script to their agents and said, are they free for these dates and would they like to do it? And they both said yes. That was incredibly easy and probably different from theatre in that theatre is a much longer commitment for actors. Short films are great because you get someone for 2 days and 3 days. We as I said before, the finding the girl was the hardest thing. And I worked with a brilliant casting director who I've worked with in theatre before called Matilda James, and she just set up a process that we sort of worked out, which was we put out a call out to lots of sort of children's acting agencies and got about 40 little girls submitting, and we asked them to tape a couple of things for us on their phone, just to talk about themselves. I can't even remember what we asked them to do. I think maybe something improvised and talk about themselves. And then from that 40, we chose, I think, about 10 to come in and meet us. And they came in on a Saturday in 2 groups, and we did like practical work with them in groups. So they did like improvising and playing together and a bit of acting. I think, mainly. I think we did a little bit of work on the story, a little bit. And from that 10 or so, we chose 4 to come again. And each of those 4 had, or 3 or 4, I think, had an individual session with us for an hour. And we definitely then worked through lots of moments from the film, read dialogue. We had an actress with us who read in for a couple of scenes. And then eventually, we chose Isabella. Isabella's last audition was sort of mayhem. She was just she made us play the games that we wanted her to do, and ran rings around us, but then was also brilliant, yeah, she nailed it. But it was quite a long process, and you know, was quite rigorous. But the truth is that we were in the right place at the right time to find Isabella. There was no way, another week in the year she might have been she might not have even seen the call out. She'd never really acted before. She'd done some modeling, but she never acted, but and certainly never held a story, so we were very lucky. And then my friend Danny, who's an actor, a friend of mine who I know, he played the father who makes a fleeting appearance. And Danny's actually the only Jewish actor in the film. And it was important that I had someone who could sing, who knew the Hebrew that they sing the song. They sing a Hebrew song, song. And I just wanted someone who could just come in and take care of that stuff, and just in a few moments tell us a very small story of a relationship.
Ah, nice. So yeah, like now it's all done, right? And you can look back on it all and everything like that. Like, how was this experience? Like, as I said, look, coming from theatre, you've made the other couple of shorts, but this being this original idea, this new thing, this kind of thing that kind of really touched on, family and history and all of that, right? And you managed to put it together and create this really just, man, this lovely little story that kind of invokes so much emotion. Like, after all of that, all the process, like at the end of it, like, yeah, how do you feel? Is there stuff that you're like, oh, I wish we could have changed that? Or is it like, no, this is everything I imagined and more?
I think there are some things that people said to me when we were in the edit that were more radical than the film that you've seen, that we didn't really have time to explore. And I don't know if they, would have worked completely, because we never really tested them. So there are a few things about the film that I wonder, like, I'm not, first of all, I don't think it's perfect, and I'm sure there are ways of improving it. I'm not like haunted by those things, but occasionally I watch it and do wonder. But that's all maybe stuff that I will draw from the next film I make, that I'll just be more mindful of stuff like that, those kinds of comments. But I think because we've it's a long time, it's a while now since we made it, and what we've been doing since has been the film festivals. And although that's been bloody weird because it's all been online, we haven't been to, I've been to one in-person festival of the 30 that we've been in. Still, we've been working the festivals, and so yeah, I think really what's happened since is just getting people to see it. And more recently, in the last few weeks, we've been doing some amazing, we did a screening online with the Museum of Jewish Heritage in New York, which is this huge museum dedicated to the memory of the Holocaust. And it's a really, really smart place. And we got to do a screening there, and did a screening with another organization where the audiences were often a lot of people who were children of Holocaust survivors. And so even just that angle, outside of the festivals, but actually getting, we had 300 people watch the film online the other night, and then had a really amazing conversation with a clinical psychologist about inherited trauma and stuff. And so it sounds heavy, but it was like that was very meaningful way of landing the film in front of an audience that really, like, for a lot of people, that reminded them in some way of their childhood or whatever. I just, all that stuff, festival audiences, these museum audiences, having conversations about the film, having conversations like this, like that's been so meaningful and rich for me, that people watch it and want to chat about it. It's great.
Nice. And how do you like? There's the festivals which help get the film out there, but other than that, how do you market these things?
Well,
Right? Like, do you create a budget for it, or is it all very ad hoc? Like, what's the
I mean, to be
process?
honest, this would be different next time. This time it was a bit ad hoc because I didn't really know what I was doing. I'd never done the festival circuit before. I didn't know really, and my producer and I were like learning on the hoof in terms of this stuff. So in terms of placing the film, what you're talking about, yeah, we've got a sales agent now, which means someone that kind of will try to sell the film to like TV stations that program short films, or even like stuff like in-flight airline programs and video on demand. There is a marketplace for short films, and we have sold the film a bit, which has been amazing. So it's been festivals, 30 plus festivals for the film. So the audiences that go with that. We were also in one festival called Manhattan Short recently, which is a global festival that plays the film in cinemas around the world. And so that in itself, I don't know the exact numbers, but they claim to screen the film to up to about 100,000 people. So it's had a real reach there. And then, as I just described, like these events that we've been doing, and now it's on Omeleto.com, where it's had like in a few days, it's had like 21,000 views. So, like a lot of people are seeing it, which is incredible, really. Because when I went into the process, I wasn't sure like who would be interested beyond the festivals in like watching the film. Like who's interested in who makes a beeline for short films. But there is an appetite, and it's great.
Yeah, I think one thing that's always interesting about a short film is like, sometimes it's evening, say, and you're like, all right, what do I do now? And you think, let me watch something. And you're like, oh, should I watch that new? And you're looking at it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if I've got 2.5 hours. I was like, or you've got stuff you want to do, but you want to break, and it's just like, I don't really want to break for this amount of time. But a short film, you can be like, yeah, I got 14 minutes. I can watch something for 14 minutes. Right. And it's easier to dip into than sometimes a full-length feature or a TV show.
Yeah, I think that's true. And good short films are very, very there's a really distilled storytelling. So you can often feel like you've watched something much longer because so much is packed into it. A good short film can do that, can transport you somewhere pretty quick, put you through the gears of a story very quickly. Sometimes with a greater discipline than a feature film or a TV show, which has so much more time to chew, that sometimes there's padding and it's loose and all repetitious.
Yeah, I watched something recently this week, and it felt like the first half an hour could probably have been trimmed down, and there's other elements that just didn't quite work, but they nailed the tension. You know what I mean? So it's just it's funny sometimes that you watch a feature length and it doesn't quite work, but a short, you're just like, and it hits you even harder than this thing that was like an hour and a half, say.
Yeah.
Right? And that's always like, how the hell did they do that? How did they tell this great story in this short period of time? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's good. It's a really good discipline.
So, from all of this, where does this take you next? Right? Do you have, like, you talked about, you're mulling over whether to turn it into a feature, but is there other projects that you've got on the back burner?
I'm working on a TV show with a couple of other writers, which I've got a deadline on today, actually. How I've got to get on with, and then I'm writing a play which I've never done before for a theatre in London, which has taken me a long time, and I still got to write a fair bit more of it, but I'm excited about. And then a couple of other feature ideas that I'm working with other writers, an adaptation of a novel and an adaptation of a play, and then one other original film idea. So I'm just sort of, it's not easy. I've just had like my second son like 2 weeks ago, so
Oh, yeah.
kind of like sleepless and doing a lot of nappy changes, and it's not all easy, but yeah, giving it a go. Trying to like, because I've not been, I'm still just working out how to be a writer, because I've never really, that's not how it's not what I've done. I've been directing other people's writing for 20 years. I've never really like fully owned the idea that I might myself be a writer who wants to direct their work, and like that's just putting in the hours really, and building up the muscles for it, and working out what your voice is. It's all pretty fun.
Well, I mean, Mark, for someone that's not a writer, this was a pretty great stab at it.
Oh, well,
You
thanks a
know?
lot. I really appreciate you taking so much time to talk about it, and like the way you've engaged with the story is just lovely. It's like, you're really, you've really like, got it, and it's such a nice feeling. So thank you, and thanks for all the nice things you said about the film.
Hey, no worries at all, man. You did all the hard work. I just sat here for a few minutes and watched
Yeah,
what you
that's all I can
created,
ask.
and that
You
was
should-
enjoyable, man.
yeah.
But so, how can people follow what you're doing? Do you have a
Oh yeah,
website, social?
I've got a website which is just, my name is www.markrosenblatt.com. markrosenblatt.com, and we're on, you can follow me on Instagram at mark.rosenblatt, and you can follow the short film on Instagram at Ganef _ short film. And the film itself you can watch, as I keep saying, you can watch on, it's very easy to find. You can either just Google Ganef and Omeleto, which is Omeleto, like omelette but different. Or you just Google, or just put in omeleto.com, and you can find the film and just watch it for free. And it's on, it won't be on forever there. It's only actually going to be on for at the moment for a few more weeks, but do check it out. And you can actually find out what the hell we've been talking about for an hour.
All right. Well, all the links will be in the episode information. So people, make sure you follow Mark. Right. Go check out his work. Go watch the film for sure. Watch the film. Right. And yeah, Mark, I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
You
Thank
again
you.
for
Yeah.
coming by. And yo, when the TV show is done, when the theatre play is done, when anything else is done, come by and talk to us, man.
I'd love to do that. It was such a nice chat. I'm sorry, I've got that's like, I'm being sort of scorched by the sun suddenly, like turning into some kind of like evil villain with a kind of side-lit face. But I would absolutely love to. It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Splendid. Thank you, mate.
All right.
All the success with the film.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right.